Hi, this video is in response to many of the videos I've seen by anarcho-capitalists or free-market-anarchists. What I'd like to do in this video is underscore the importance of the state to capitalism, understand what the state is, and how capitalists cannot and have not been opposed to the state. I'd like to look at the state, what it is, how it developed, and what purposes it serves, to explain that anarcho-capitalists are not anarchists. Hope you'll enjoy. What is the state? Do we know? I don't think the anarcho-capitalists do know. So, with that in mind, I think what happens is we have some confusion between the state and government. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Michael Parenti explain this in a little better detail.
Because the state is a particular thing. The state is not the mediator and creator of policy as such. It is the purveyor of force and control. As Max Weber, the German sociologist, bourgeois theorist, anti-Marxist, said, the state has a monopoly of the legitimate or legal uses of force and violence. It is the purveyor. It is the protector of the status quo of law and order. The difference between government and state is the difference between the city council and the police. You get it? It's the difference between the Congress and the CIA. It's a theoretical distinction about empirically overlapping actualities.
So we understand that the state and government are not the same thing. Although they overlap, the state's primary function is force and power. So before we get on to how this applies to anarcho-capitalists, we have to understand how the state developed, what gave rise to the state. And we could look to John Locke, 1689, in his second treatise on civil government, and I quote, "The great and chief end of men uniting into commonwealths and putting themselves under government is the preservation of their property." In 1776, Adam Smith, "The necessity of civil government grows with the acquisition of valuable property. Till there be property, there can be no government, the very end of which is to secure wealth and defend the rich from the poor." James Madison, at our Constitutional Convention, said, "The primary purpose of this government is to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority." Thus the capitalist class needs the state in order to protect its privilege of private property and its ability to exploit the working class. As seen in this budget here, the majority of our outlays go towards the military. Furthermore, in regards to the rest of the world, as a people, we outspend the rest of the world combined on our military. It's estimated that from 1950 to present, we've spent over $15 trillion on the military. This is made even more apparent when we look at a map of U.S. bases around the world that show the true extent of the global capitalist empire. State. A game of mental gymnastics, if you will. According to Murray Rothbard, he defines the state must have one or both of the following characteristics: the ability to tax those that live within it, and it asserts and usually obtains a coerced monopoly of the provision of defense over a given area. Now, basically, number two is reasserting Max Weber's definition of the state. The way he tries to get around it, the way anarcho-capitalists try to get around it, is they say that these defense companies that are established defend people, not areas. Well, we all know that's a bunch of crock, because people live in geographical areas, and their property, no doubt, exists on the planet somewhere. So their defense of these people is really a defense of their property and their ability to use that property to exploit others. Therefore, these defense companies, while private, are still states. The state exists to protect private property. That's why states developed. That's why the state is as big as it is. That is why we have the military-industrial complex that we have, with a global empire stretching around the world. It's to protect private property. Capitalism cannot exist without the state, even according to its most die-hard proponents like Rothbard, who just attempt to redefine the state. The state exists to protect private property. Hopefully that's been made clear. Anarcho-capitalists are not anarchists. They do not oppose the state. What they do oppose is government. They oppose the things that working people over the last 150 years have fought and died for. Things like safe working conditions, minimum wages, worker compensation, health care, pensions, all the things, 8-hour work days, vacation, death benefits, all the things that working people in the United States take for granted have been fought and won by working people joining together, forming unions, combinations, and agitating for a better share of the pie. If you look back at our labor history, it is a history of class struggle. It is a struggle against the wage system, against capitalism. And when these anarcho-capitalists try to tell us that they're talking about free market capitalism, we've had free market capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism. Go back to the 1850s, the 1860s, all the way up to 1900, when you had typhoid epidemics. You had people living on starvation wages. Go back and read the accounts of the people who had to work in those conditions, and you'll see what free market capitalism is. Or if you want to see it today, check out Indonesia or China, or what they call free business zones throughout the third world, where businesses operate the way they want to, providing starvation or subsistent wages to their workers. That's free market capitalism. And that's not what anarchism is about.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united.